The galaxy was quiet, too quiet, like the stars were holding their breath. War had burned across 1,000 worlds, yet no one spoke the name of Earth anymore. Humans were a forgotten story, a legend the young ones laughed at, a myth told by those who remembered old wars. But the silence before the storm always hides something. And on this night, it hid something terrible. On the outer edge of the Orion Rift, the Zyre Dominion fleet floated in formation. Thousands of ships spread across the dark void. Their commanders stared at the glowing maps, watching red enemy signals moving closer every second. The Zarn Collective, a species of cold-blooded conquerors, had pushed them into a corner. Their weapons were ready, but their hope was gone. Admiral Karth of the Zyre stood on the command bridge of his ship Valkor Prime, his scales reflecting the dying light of the star nearby. He spoke softly, his voice cracking. "This will be our last stand." His officers said nothing. Some prayed to their gods, others prepared to die. The enemy numbers were beyond counting, black clouds of warships filling the horizon. Then the alarm screamed. The Zarn had arrived. The battle began without mercy. Laser fire cut across the darkness. Torpedoes exploded like small suns and ships vanished in clouds of burning metal. Within minutes, half of the HFY fleet was gone. Admiral Karth shouted orders, but the command channel was full of dying voices. He looked at the tactical display. There was no escape, no help, no hope, in the middle of chaos. A young officer screamed, "Admiral!" "We are getting a signal." Karth froze. "From where?" The officer's hands shook. "Unknown source deep in Sector 9. Karth frowned. "Sector 9? That region has been dead for centuries." The signal came again, faint but clear. A code pattern no alien had used in thousands of years. A human distress beacon. The bridge went silent. Every alien turned to look at the screen as ancient Terran symbols appeared, glowing white against black space. The computer translated slowly, line by line. "Terra Command, active sector reawakening, standby for contact," Karth whispered. "It cannot be. Humans are gone, extinct." But the signal grew stronger. Some of the older crew trembled, remembering the stories. Stories of how humanity once fought the entire galaxy and survived. How their fleets vanished one night, leaving behind only the warning, "If you see the black ships return, pray they are not here for you." Outside, the Zarn ships stopped firing for a moment, confused by the strange pulse across all communication channels. Then every star in the sector blinked. The space around the dying sun began to ripple. Something massive was emerging from hyperspace. Not one ship, but many, dark metal hulls shaped like blades, moving without lights, without sound. The HFY fleet watched in awe and fear. The newcomers formed a perfect line in front of the battlefield. Facing the Terran Armada, their hulls bore a single mark. A blue circle with a silver eagle, Earth's insignia. Karth's voice trembled. "By the stars." They came back. The Zarn fleet opened fire. Every cannon blazing, but the human ships did not move. They let the storm hit them and then nothing. When the smoke cleared, the human ships still stood untouched, silent and unmoved. Then their lights came on, white and cold. Every Terran weapon charged in unison, the void itself trembling. The alien captains across the sector could only whisper. They don't talk. They don't warn. They just end wars. On board the lead human dreadnought. Invictus Captain Marcus Vane watched the screens. He had been awakened from cryo-sleep hours ago. His voice calm and steady. "Confirm target lock," he said. His crew replied. "Targets confirmed, 100% accuracy." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then begin Operation Dawnfire." From the Terran line, beams of light erupted, pure energy cutting through space like godly fire. Entire Zarn formations disintegrated. Their command ships melted into plasma before they could retreat. The galaxy had not seen such power in 1,000 years. The human fleet moved forward, silent and unstoppable. No banners, no cheers, no mercy. In a few minutes, the battle was over. The Zarn collective fleet had been erased. The HFY Dominion's surviving ships floated in stunned silence. No one spoke, no one moved. Admiral Karth's eyes filled with tears. He looked at the massive Terran dreadnought on his screen. Its lights glowing like a silent judgment from the stars, he whispered. "We thought you were gone." A calm human voice answered through the channel. "Humanity never left. We were just waiting." The channel went dark. The human fleet turned slowly, preparing for another jump in the distance. The stars flickered again, as if warning the galaxy. Earth had awakened. and the universe would never be the same again. The battle was over, yet the silence that followed was heavier than war itself. The stars still glowed red from burning wreckage, and the void smelled of smoke and death. The Ear Dominion's survivors floated among drifting debris, staring at the human fleet that now stood motionless before them. The black hulls of Terran ships reflected no light, no emotion, only the endless void itself. Inside the command bridge of the human dreadnought Invictus, Captain Marcus Vane stood still, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the battlefield. He was a man who had lived two lives, one before the long cryo-sleep, and one after awakening into a galaxy that had forgotten humanity. Around him, the crew spoke in calm voices, each motion precise, mechanical, trained beyond fear. They had waited centuries for this day, and now, Earth's silence was finally broken. Lieutenant Aisha Wren looked at the captain, her voice quiet. "Sir, the alien fleet is hailing us." Vane did not respond at once. He only stared at the flickering dots that marked enemy positions. Then he said softly, "Let them wait." He turned his gaze toward the distant planet glowing faintly on the edge of the system, the home world of the Zarn Collective. "That is our next target," he said. The crew nodded without question. On the alien flagship Valcor Prime, Admiral Karth waited nervously, his hands shaking, his throat dry. He could not believe the scene before him. Human ships, sleek, black, and perfectly still, were real, not ghosts, not myths, but a storm from ancient times made of steel and vengeance. When his comms officer finally said, "They are ready to respond," Karth almost couldn't speak. "Put them through," he whispered. The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. Pale skin, sharp eyes, cold expression. Terran command. "Captain Marcus Vane," the man said evenly. Karth bowed slightly. "I am Admiral Karth of the Ear Dominion. You saved us, Captain. We are in your debt." Vane's expression didn't change. "We did not come to save anyone," he replied. "We came to finish what was started long ago." The word sent a chill through every alien on the bridge. "What do you mean?" Karth asked carefully. Vane looked at him like a teacher addressing a student. "Your kind fought in the War of Ascension, did you not?" Karth hesitated. "That was over 1,000 years ago, yes. But, then you know," Vane interrupted. "You know the truth of who started it." The screen went black before Karth could answer. Inside Invictus, Vane turned to his officers. "Prepare for planetary assault protocols. Target Zarn Prime." Lieutenant Wren frowned. "Sir, the HFY Fleet wishes to follow us. They say they want to fight beside humanity." Vane paused for a moment, then said, "No, they will only watch. This war belongs to us." The Terran fleet began to move. Engines glowed blue, power surging through the massive ships as they aligned in formation. Each dreadnought emitted a low hum, a vibration that traveled through space itself. One by one, their jump drives charged to the watching aliens. It looked like a storm gathering under a black ocean. When the first jump ripple expanded, the XR officers shielded their eyes. Dozens of Terran warships vanished in a burst of light. Leaving behind a shockwave that rippled through the void, Admiral Karth whispered to his crew. "The legends were true," a younger officer asked. "What legends, sir?" Karth answered slowly, "That when Earth returns, the stars will burn again, far across the galaxy." In orbit of Zarn Prime, the skies began to shake. Warning sirens wailed across alien cities as unidentified signals entered the atmosphere. The Zarn High Command scrambled fighters, planetary shields activated, and commanders shouted into their comms. But before any orders were completed, the sky turned white. The Terran fleet had arrived. Invictus appeared at the center of the invasion zone. Surrounded by hundreds of Terran ships, their weapons were already charged. Captain Vane stood tall as the bridge lights dimmed. "Begin orbital suppression," he ordered calmly. Columns of light fell from the heavens, erasing defense satellites and weapon platforms in seconds. The planet's surface boiled, clouds turning into ash. The Zarn army fired everything they had. Missiles, beams, plasma bursts. But none of it mattered. The human shields absorbed everything like rain on stone. Vane watched the display, emotionless. "Target their capital," he said. The ship's AI responded. Coordinates locked. He raised his hand. "Fire." One beam left the Invictus, bright as a newborn sun. It struck the planet's surface and kept going, cutting through mountains and oceans until the entire hemisphere was gone. Silence filled the command deck. No one spoke. No one cheered. It was not victory. It was correction, back on Valcor Prime. Admiral Karth and his crew watched in disbelief. One of his officers whispered, "They just destroyed a world." Karth nodded slowly. "Not destroyed," he said. "Erased." As the smoke cleared, the Terran fleet drifted over the glowing remains of Zarn Prime. Captain Vane turned to his crew and spoke quietly. "Send a message to all known channels." Aisha Wren nodded and began typing. The message was short, only 3 lines long. This was not an act of war. This was a reminder. Humanity remembers everything. The message spread faster than light, reaching every corner of the galaxy within hours. Planets that once mocked Earth now fell silent. Leaders called emergency meetings, and old alliances began to crumble. The humans had returned, and they did not come in peace. In the dark between stars, the Terran fleet moved again, their next target unknown. But one thing was certain. Wherever humanity went, history followed. The galaxy had not seen power like this for thousands of years. Every communication channel, every starport, every colony whispered the same words. Earth has returned. Those who once mocked the name of humanity now spoke it with fear, not pride. The Zarn Collective was gone, erased from existence, and the stars above their burned world glowed red as if bleeding in shame. Captain Marcus Vane stood on the bridge of Invictus, silent as ever. The crew moved like ghosts, calm, precise, and loyal. No one celebrated, no one smiled. They all understood the truth. Humanity's war had just begun. The next target lay ahead, the Kreth Enclave, another empire that had once joined the war against old Earth. The Terran fleet approached their borders silently. No warning, no demand for surrender. Only the cold hum of reactors filled the air. The stars seemed to dim as hundreds of Terran ships exited hyperspace in perfect formation. In the capital system of the Kreth, alarms rang out. Commanders rushed to battle stations, ships scrambled into orbit. They had heard of what happened to the Zarn. They thought they were ready, but they were wrong. The first human strike came without a word. No broadcast, no threat, just sudden blinding light. Missile clusters streaked through the void. Thousands of them, guided by invisible drones, the Kreth defense grid tried to intercept. But their systems froze under the sudden electronic surge. Their sensors saw only static, and by the time the interference cleared, it was already over. The Terran fleet's railguns fired in sequence, kinetic rounds traveling faster than light. Each shot shattered ships like glass. Cruisers exploded, stations cracked open. The Kreth homeworld's sky burned red as orbital fire rained down. Their admirals screamed into comms, begging for surrender. But the humans didn't answer. They didn't fight for conquest. They fought for balance. And to them, balance meant silence on board Invictus. Lieutenant Aisha Wren watched the display. "Enemy fleets neutralized, sir," she said quietly. Captain Vane nodded. "No survivors?" "None detected," she replied. He looked down for a moment, his reflection cold in the glass. Then he said, "Prepare the message." Wren hesitated. "Sir, do we send it again?" Vane's eyes met hers. Yes, the same words, the same message that had echoed across the stars before. This was not an act of war. This was a reminder. Humanity remembers everything. As the words transmitted, the remaining Kreth colonies fell silent. Entire worlds powered down their weapons, broadcasting surrender before the humans even spoke. The Terran fleet did not reply. They simply moved on. A silent storm traveling through the galaxy. The stars watched as each new system fell into shadow. Not through invasion, but through fear. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, leaders from dozens of species gathered in panic. Holographic screens showed system after system falling dark. The High Chancellor of the Varn species shouted, "They will not stop. We must unite against them." But another delegate whispered, "Unite against Earth? You saw what happened to the Zarn, to the Kreth. What chance do we have?" The room fell silent. No one dared speak against the name of humanity again. Meanwhile, on Invictus, deep within the command core, a message from Earth finally arrived. It was transmitted from the old Terran Defense Network, an AI voice older than anyone alive. "Captain Vane," it said calmly, "you have completed Phase 1 of the Reclamation Protocol." Vane stood at attention. "Orders?" The AI replied, "Proceed to Phase 2, initiate planetary retrieval." Wren looked confused. "Sir, what does that mean?" Vane answered softly, It means Earth is taking back what once belonged to her. The crew began to prepare. Colony ships were deployed from the rear of the fleet. Massive vessels filled with cryopods, AI drones, and construction units. Wherever the Terran fleet passed, it left behind silent probes, seeding the systems with human technology. Terraformers activated, reshaping worlds long abandoned. The galaxy watched in awe as planets turned blue again. Humanity was rebuilding its empire not for conquest, but for dominance through presence, far from the main battle. A lone Kreth scout ship drifted in darkness, hidden among asteroids. Its captain recorded the human transmission. Shaking, he whispered into his log, "They don't speak to us. They don't reason, they don't demand, they just arrive and decide." His voice broke as he said, "If you see them, run." The message was never sent. A Terran drone found the ship minutes later and vaporized it without hesitation. Back on the bridge of Invictus, Captain Vane stared at the stars. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. "They forgot who we were," Aisha Wren replied softly. "They remember now, sir." He nodded. "Good." Then he turned to the crew, his eyes sharp again. "Prepare for the next system. We move at dawn." The engines roared to life, blue light filling the darkness. And as the fleet vanished into hyperspace, the void whispered once more, "Humanity has returned." Across the galaxy, millions looked to the sky with fear and wonder. Some prayed for mercy, others for strength, but deep down, every being knew one truth. The age of man had come again, and this time, there would be no one left to challenge it. The galaxy burned quietly. It was not the fire of chaos anymore, but the fire of fear. Every empire, every world, every outpost had heard the name of Earth once more. And wherever those words were spoken, silence followed. The Terran fleet was moving through the stars like a storm, leaving behind only ash and memory. On the bridge of Invictus, Captain Marcus Vane stood motionless as usual, his eyes fixed on the vast emptiness ahead, where the next system waited. His voice broke the silence, calm and steady. "Status report," Lieutenant Aisha Wren replied softly. "All ships operational, fleet holding formation. No enemy resistance detected." Vane nodded. "Good. They are learning." The crew moved with machine-like precision. No one questioned, no one hesitated. They had seen what happened to those who resisted. Humanity had awakened not as conquerors, but as executioners of order. Every act they carried out was cold, calculated and absolute. And yet, deep inside, some of them wondered how far this would go. In the Galactic core, a meeting was taking place. The Council of 12, made of the most powerful species, gathered in panic and confusion. Their holographic chamber glowed with blue light as leaders shouted over one another. "The humans are wiping entire worlds," one cried. "They gave no warning," another shouted. "No demand, no law, no reason." The Varn High Chancellor slammed his fist. "Then we make them listen. We must send a message." But before any decision was made, the lights dimmed, the air froze, and a voice, cold and human, filled the chamber. "This transmission is for the Galactic Council. This is Captain Marcus Vane of the Terran Defense Command. Your crimes have been recorded. Your wars have been judged. You brought destruction upon Earth long ago. Now you will remember why that was a mistake." The leaders froze, some trembling, some unable to breathe. The Varn Chancellor whispered. "They are watching us," the human voice continued. "We warned your ancestors once, and they ignored us. We are not here to destroy life. We are here to correct history. Every empire built upon the bones of Earth will fall, and those who remain will kneel." The message ended. No threats, no countdown, just silence. And yet the entire galaxy understood it was already too late. Back on Invictus, the communication officer turned to Captain Vane. "Sir, the message has been transmitted across all sectors." Vane nodded. "Good, then they know." Wren hesitated. "Sir, some of the crew are uneasy." Vane raised an eyebrow. "Uneasy?" She nodded. "They say we are becoming what we once fought against." Vane looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he said, "We are not becoming anything, Lieutenant. We are remembering." He walked toward the main viewport, where distant suns blinked softly in the dark. "When Earth was burned, when our colonies were erased, no one came," he said. "No help, no voice, only silence." He turned slightly. "Now, we return that silence to them." Wren lowered her head. "Understood, sir." As the fleet drifted through the void, a strange signal appeared, a faint pulse, weak but human in origin. Vane ordered it on screen. The transmission showed a damaged Terran ship, drifting alone among asteroids. The pilot's voice came through, static and broken. "This is the research vessel Odyssey. Transmitting from unknown sector. We have survivors. Repeat. Survivors." Vane's eyes narrowed. "How is that possible?" he asked. Wren replied, "Sir, that vessel vanished 300 years ago." Vane gave a short command. "Plot a course." The fleet shifted direction instantly, engines roaring to life. The Terran Armada turned toward the signal like a beast following the scent of blood. Hours later, the Invictus arrived at the coordinates. A small human ship floated in the void, barely intact, its hull covered in alien scorch marks. Boarding drones latched onto its surface, cutting through the wreckage. Inside, they found stasis pods, hundreds of them, each containing humans who had been lost to time. Wren stared at the readings in shock. "They are alive," she said. Vane placed his hand on the console, his voice low. "Then we were never alone." As the pods were recovered, one of them opened automatically. An old man stepped out, frail but alive. He looked at Vane and whispered, "You finally came." Vane replied softly, "We never stopped coming." The man smiled weakly. "Then you know the truth." Vane frowned. "What truth?" The man's eyes grew distant. "Earth's war is not over, Captain." It never ended. Before he could say more, his heart monitor flatlined. The room fell silent. Vane stood still, his mind turning like gears. Wren looked at him. "Sir, what did he mean?" Vane whispered, "It means someone out there started this before we even woke." He turned to his crew. "Begin full system scans. Find anything human." The fleet spread out, scanning every asteroid and piece of debris. Moments later, one of the ships reported an anomaly, an ancient Terran satellite still active, buried inside a crater. Its beacon flashed once every 10 seconds. Repeating one message. "Phase 3. Authorization. Awaiting command." Vane stared at the screen. "Phase 3? He said slowly. Wren swallowed. "Sir, how many phases are there?" Vane's expression hardened. "I don't know." He looked out the window as the stars reflected in his eyes. "But whoever designed this knew we would return." The silence that followed was deep, endless, and heavy. In that silence, the human fleet moved again, shadows sliding across the stars. The galaxy thought it understood humanity's message. But it didn't realize that message was only the beginning. The stars were burning again, not with war, but with memory. Humanity's shadow stretched across the galaxy. Silent and unstoppable, every empire bowed. Every fleet surrendered, and every world whispered one truth. Earth had returned. But deep inside the command bridge of the dreadnought Invictus, Captain Marcus Vane knew their mission was not yet complete. The old man's dying words haunted him. "Earth's war is not over." It never ended. Those words repeated in his mind like a code he could not solve. The message found in the satellite, Phase 3 authorization, awaiting command, was still flashing on every Terran console. Vane stared at it as if it held the answer to everything. Lieutenant Aisha Wren approached quietly. "Sir, we have finished restoring the old satellite's core memory," she said. Vane turned toward her. "And?" Wren swallowed. "It contains a message from the original Terran High Command, dated over 800 years ago." The crew stopped what they were doing. All eyes turning toward the captain, Vane nodded. "Play it." The hologram flickered to life, showing an older human general wearing the insignia of Earth Command. His voice was tired but strong. "If you are seeing this, it means the war did not end. It only slept. We knew the day would come when humanity would have to rise again. Phase 3 will begin when the fleets reawaken, and the forgotten colonies signal their survival. When that happens, unite them. For beyond our galaxy lies the true enemy, the ones who made the others turn against us." The hologram ended. Silence filled the bridge. Wren whispered, "Sir, are we not the final phase?" Vane's eyes darkened. "No, Lieutenant, we are only the beginning. Outside the ship." The Terran fleet drifted in perfect formation, thousands of warships reflecting light like floating mountains of metal. Each one carried a signal now, broadcasting to deep space, calling to something far beyond known space. Vane knew someone or something was listening. Hours passed, then days. The stars remained silent until one night, the sensors began to detect movement at the galactic edge. Wren's voice trembled slightly. "Captain, multiple energy readings." "Not ours." Vane stood tall, his voice calm. Identify, the computer replied. Unknown. Configuration matches no known species. Then, slowly the main screen lit up. Dozens of massive objects appeared, ancient, black and alien even to human eyes. The crew stared in silence as the nearest object unfolded like a sleeping beast. Its form stretching across the void, Wren whispered. Is that a ship? Vane nodded slowly. No, Lieutenant, that's a world. It was an artificial planet, larger than any Terran construct, radiating impossible energy. And at its center glowed a single symbol, one that matched the carvings found on the ruins of old Earth. The old general's voice echoed in Vane's head again. They made the others turn against us. Vane understood now. The real enemy had never been the Zarn, or the Kreth, or the Dominion. It was something older, something that had guided the galaxy's hatred toward humanity for thousands of years. He turned to the crew. Ready all fleets, Wren asked. Sir? Should we attempt communication? Vane shook his head slowly. No, not yet. They already know we're here. Moments later, the alien world ship opened fire. Beams of golden light shot through the darkness, slicing through nearby asteroids like paper. Human shields flared under the impact, but held firm. Vane's voice cut through the noise. Return fire, and once again the sky burned. The first strike from the Terran fleet hit with blinding precision. Railgun slugs cracked through the enemy's outer layer, followed by plasma storms that boiled entire regions of space. But the alien construct did not fall. It adapted, its armor shifting like liquid, its energy bending reality itself. Wren shouted, Sir, our weapons are having minimal effect. Vane's voice remained calm. Then increase power to maximum. We will break it. The human fleet pushed forward, their engines flaring brighter than stars. Missiles cut across the void. Beams pierced through the alien defenses and explosions painted the sky. Every human ship fought like it carried the memory of 1,000 lost years. They did not fight for vengeance anymore. They fought for existence. Then, in the middle of chaos, the AI voice of Invictus spoke. Captain Vane, I have decoded the final command embedded in Phase 3. Vane turned sharply. Speak, the AI replied. It reads, if we fall, light the signal. The others will come. Vane's heart pounded. Others? The AI responded, yes, Captain, multiple human fleets remain in deep cryo beyond the galactic rim. Wren's eyes widened. There are more? Vane smiled faintly for the first time. There always were. He gave his final order, his voice steady and cold. Activate the signal. Call them home. A beam of light erupted from Invictus, piercing through the galactic darkness. Every human ship echoed it, transmitting the same frequency. The signal traveled beyond stars, beyond galaxies, and somewhere in the deep void, old Terran warships began to stir, their engines glowing faintly after centuries of silence. The alien world ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. The Terran reinforcements arrived, millions of ships emerging from hyperspace like a tidal wave of light. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as humanity's full might returned. In that moment, the galaxy understood. This was not revenge, not conquest, but destiny. Captain Vane stood on the bridge, watching as the alien construct finally cracked and imploded. He whispered quietly, For Earth, Wren repeated softly. For Earth? The explosion spread through the void, and for a moment it looked like dawn rising over darkness. When the fire faded, the human fleet remained. Silent and victorious, but in that silence, one truth lingered. Humanity had won, yet the war beyond stars had only begun. Vane turned from the viewport, his reflection sharp against the glow. Prepare the next phase, he said quietly. Wren asked, Sir, what do we call it? Vane looked into the endless dark and answered, We call it the Legacy of Fire. As the fleet drifted toward the unknown, the stars behind them flickered like dying candles. And in every corner of the galaxy, old enemies bowed their heads, for they finally understood what the message truly meant. Humanity was not a story of survival. It was a promise of return. And now that promise had been fulfilled.